Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our Middlesex County Council meeting for Tuesday, June the 8th. I would like to, at this time, call our meeting to order. The last 10 days have been, to say the least, troubling. Our nation was rattled with the discovery of 215 lost, but now found Indigenous children. The discovery has served as a reminder that we cannot hide from a painful and horrifying past. We as a collective nation must acknowledge the role played in this cultural genocide. I am sure that in your personal reflections and within your local municipalities and council meetings, that you have grieved and honored the 215 little lives that have been lost. Here at the county, the flag has been flying at half-mast. And now we are facing the events from Sunday evening that happened right in our backyard. I really have no words as to how we begin to process what happened. I can share that when Chief Williams confirmed this tragedy at yesterday's news conference, that the fact was this was a targeted hate crime, I felt physically ill. Far too many times we have witnessed from afar crimes of this nature in other countries, in other communities. And I would hope that we are not so naive to think that racial prejudice does not exist here. After all, we have seen the signs. We've heard stories of troubling signs. However, a brutal, targeted attack on a family just out for an evening stroll really leaves me gobsmacked. We all need time to process this, and I suspect as more details are released, it will for a time become more difficult to grapple with. These two events, while decades apart in occurrence, are bound together by hatred. A hatred that I do not understand and I cannot fathom. I have reached out to Mayor Holder and expressed our sympathies and support on behalf of everyone in Middlesex County. Our flag will be flying at half-mast until Friday in honor of this family. As leaders, we are looked to for continuity and comfort, and it is hard to offer that during times when we ourselves are hurting, burdened, and troubled. But to our communities, I offer this. We must acknowledge what has happened, and we must be part of a better future. In my Luke and Biddulph office, I have a sign that reads, "Do better." And we must be part of a present and a future where we do better. We must call out hate when we see it. We cannot be idle bystanders any longer. When we hear inappropriate language referring to a culture, when a joke is shared that really shouldn't be, we must speak up. If we don't, how can we be part of facilitating change? Hatred grows, and it's easy when we don't stop that growth. Ignorance leads to fear, fear leads to anger leads to hate. Let's just stop the cycle at ignorance. Love will always prevail, and we must lead with love. We often look at past leaders and influences for inspiration at a time like this. And I was empowered when I found this quote from Martin Luther King Jr. I felt that it described our community today and offered the hope that leading with love provides. Hatred paralyzes life. Love releases it. Hatred confuses life. Love harmonizes it. Hatred darkens life. Love illuminates it. Please join me in a moment of silence to honor the 215 little lives and the family lost in London on Sunday. Thank you. Before we kick off the meat of our meeting, I do want to take a moment to formally congratulate Councillor Vanderheyden on officially becoming the president of FCM. Joanne, I'll clap, virtual clap. Joanne, this is an incredible accomplishment, and your year ahead will be full of challenges and opportunity. And I know that Strathroy-Caradoc, Middlesex County, and now municipalities across the country will be stronger for your leadership. Congratulations. We are excited for you, and we look forward to watching you as this year goes on. And I also want to mention that Councillor Elliott also held on to her seat on the board. We are well represented in our region, of course, with Joanne at the helm, Kelly on the board, and then Councillor Josh Morgan, I guess Deputy Mayor Josh Morgan from the City of London. So congratulations to all. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest? Okay. Moving into the minutes, is there any business arising from the minutes that council would like to speak to? We've got the minutes from May 25th in front of us, and unless nothing needs to be amended, I would ask for a mover and a seconder to approve them as presented. Councillor Richards and Councillor Warwick. All opposed? And that's carried. So we do have a couple of different deputations, a couple of different people joining us today. And this one is an exciting announcement. And I'm pleased to welcome Regina Lurk. I'm sorry, I'm reading this incorrectly. I'm actually thrilled to be introducing Morgan Calvert. He's a familiar face to many of us here at the county, who's the president of MISA Ontario, who will be presenting a very special award. Morgan?
Thank you, Madam Warden, and of course through you to council. Thank you for having me here today. I'll try to keep it short. It looks like council has a fairly busy agenda today, but one of the things that MISA Ontario is trying to do is really take a moment and step back and celebrate our collective accomplishments. As IT folks are generally bouncing from one project to the next, we don't often take a moment to reflect. So in saying that, I'm very excited to be here today in my capacity as past president of MISA Ontario. So just recently at our AGM, which was yesterday, I became the past president. We're into a new term of our board of directors. So really, MISA Ontario is a municipally focused association representative of IT folks across Ontario. We're here to acknowledge Chris as he was awarded the Regina Lurkey Distinguished Service Award recently at our annual conference. Chris was nominated by one of his peers in recognition of his contributions to MISA Ontario and the broader IT community. This award recognizes the spirit of working beyond the call with humor and humanity and in making a difference to the organization and its members. Chris, in presenting this Regina Lurkey Distinguished Service Award, the MISA Ontario Board of Directors wishes to recognize your outstanding contribution and involvement to our association through your contributions in our electronic meeting guide, speaking at conference sessions, volunteering your IT support during events, as well as supporting the MISA Ontario staff with their IT needs to ensure the organization remains operational. Chris, over the years, I've had the absolute pleasure of watching you grow into the IT leader you've become today. Thank you for sharing your knowledge and expertise and providing guidance and assistance to your neighboring municipalities and your fellow colleagues across Ontario, especially during these pandemic times. Thank you, Madam Warden, for allowing me to take the opportunity this afternoon to celebrate Chris's accomplishments with council and staff.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Morgan, and congratulations, Chris. More claps. We're certainly proud of you, and given the nature of the award, couldn't think of a better recipient. Is there anything you'd like to say at this time?
Yeah, through you, Warden, to council and Morgan, thank you very much. Wanted to thank MISA Awards and Elections Committee for the selection. I also wanted to thank my colleague who nominated me. I had no idea it was coming. I was really surprised when it was announced. And, you know, lastly, just reviewing the list of previous winners, I'm really honored to be a part of the list of municipal IT leaders who have received this award in the past. And I plan to continue contributing to MISA Ontario going forward. So thank you very much.
Great. Thanks.
And here,
Chris.
I'll throw up the award.
Oh, let's see the award. Yep. Excellent, excellent. It's always good when you get an award and you actually have it in hand. Congratulations again, Chris. Thanks for joining us, Morgan. It's great to see you. Of course, you're welcome to stay and watch if you want.
I'm going to go swing some more hammers at some walls and get that renovation done.
Gotcha.
Thanks, everybody. Take care.
Thanks, Morgan.
Okay. At this time, I'm pleased to welcome Detachment Commander Dean Croker from the OPP, Middlesex County West Region. He's joining us with a report on the summary of activities across Middlesex County. Dean, it seems I just saw you last week. Oh, I did. You were at my LUCA meeting. So it's great to have you join us in this capacity at Middlesex County. And we all look forward to hearing your report. Over to you, Dean.
Thank you, Warden, councilors, and staff. Thank you very much for this opportunity to speak before you today. So I've got kind of a formal report, but it's we'll look over it kind of informally. It captures main categories of policing and how we collect stats, how every police service in Canada collects stats as it pertains to our communities. So at any time, if there's any questions or if you want me to elaborate on a certain area, let me know. I have additional information here that I can expand on some of this stuff. So the way I've got the report written, we're going to look at the complete year 2020 versus 2021 and 2019 to 2020. So looking at the 2020, the entire year, January to December, and comparing it to 2019, on the left of the chart that's in front of you has the major categories. So violent crime. When we look at that for the county in its entirety, there's a decrease from in 2020 from 2019. So we're looking at 251 violent crimes. So that's your assaults, your anything with violence, assault caused bodily harms, domestic assaults. They dropped in 2020. Property crime, which is obviously a major concern for all communities. There was a decrease in that from 2019 to 2020. The next category, other criminal codes, it catches court processes such as bail violations. Let's get my list here so I don't forget any of the major ones. There's other type of like weapons charges, those type of events, and there was an increase in 2020 versus 2019 by 40 calls. And just looking at the detailed report, there isn't one area really in particular, nothing to deal with the actual true criminal nature, where there's a jump, where the main increase in those the difference between 2020 and 2019 actually comes to bail violation. So it's a court process where somebody hasn't complied with a bail condition and has led to subsequent charges as a result of that. The next two categories, drug possession and drugs, encapsulates both simple possession of controlled drugs off the street and larger investigations involving search warrants. So there's an increase in both those categories over in 2020 versus 2019. That is a reflection of proactive work being done by the officers. As we know, there's drugs in all our communities. So the attention that we're able to put to it comes from Crime Stoppers, comes from concerned citizens, comes from the warden and counselors from across the county reaching out to me when the constituents have come forward with concerns, and then we look into those matters. So there's been an increase in those charges over the previous year from 2019 to 2020. Statutes and acts, that's the two main provincial statutes that deals with is Trespass of Property Act and the Landlord Tenant Act. Those are the kind of enforceable acts that we have, but a big category that also falls within there deals with mental health and any call under the Mental Health Act. So it's actually nice to see that there's a decrease from 2019 to 2020, with the majority of those classifications coming under varying degrees of mental health. So in 2020, there was a slight decrease, and I'll compare 2020 to 2021 shortly. Operational, and this is our main category for all policing ventures and calls for service that we get, such as false alarms, missing persons, noise complaints, animal complaints, those type of events. And there's a decrease from 2019 to 2020 again. Operational 2 deals with the 911 hangups, residential business alarms, those type of events. And again, there's a decrease in that. I'll talk a little bit specifically about the traffic events in a different chart in a few minutes. We did see a decrease in policing activity in throughout parts of 2020 because of the onset of COVID-19. People being forced to stay at home, working from home, changed a number of things, such as the amount of traffic accidents we were having, property crimes dropping. And I'll show a comparison to next with between 2020 and 2021 from January to May and show you where we are right now. So with those same categories that we just went over, and just looking at the first part of this year compared to last, where we in 2020, January until March 16th was normal living for us, or I guess yeah, then March 17th, all the Emergency Measures Civil Protection Act powers came into effect. So again, 2021, we're seeing a decrease in violent crime across the county. Property crime violations have gone down. Our criminal code violations have gone down. Drug possessions, drug investigations have gone down. Statutes and Act, where we've seen an increase, is this time it is as a result of some mental health concerns. Our operational calls for service, they're roughly about the same, about 100 difference. So our general calls for service were, again, parts of 2020 were slow, but the latter part of 2020, or the beginning of 2020, from January to May, we had that. So January, February, part of March were normal. And then after that, it petered off. And this year from January until May, we actually really haven't seen the peaks and valleys that we saw in 2020. So these numbers are a little bit more reflective of normal living in the county. Our operational 2, so the false alarms, those type of events also decrease, and our traffic is down as well. And that's all related to the accidents. So on those 2 reports, if there's any specific questions, I can go over those, or I can carry on with the next part of the report I have before you.
Okay, any questions from council on what has been presented so far? Okay, I'm not seeing any hands, so why don't you just keep going, Dean, and we'll see what happens for the next part.
So this just kind of summarizes our motor vehicle collisions within the county, with all the municipalities and all the roadways that we have within Middlesex County. And it won't show up, unfortunately, with the way it's printed, but the next page will show a comparison of 2020. But I can let you know where we are right now. The numbers, well, as this report shows here, actually, I'll just address one report at a time. We've had 2 fatal accidents so far in the county, one in January and one in May. Number of injuries, personal injuries, are about statistically where they normally are. We're looking at 94, with the total amount of accidents where they're broken down is, so fatal accidents, as I said, we have 2. PI is personal injury, so there have been 63 accidents where people were injured, and it could be varying degrees from minor to life-altering. Property damage, which is the majority of them, or just damage to vehicles, is 379 in the first, well, almost 6 months of, well, definitely full 5 months of 2021. And I'll be talking shortly after this. I'll expand a little bit more on our actions that we're taking across the county for some traffic enforcement. So the next page will show a complete totality of events for motor vehicle collisions in 2020. Where we're looking at, in comparison to 2021, where right now we're sitting at 2 fatal accidents. In all of 2020, we had 13. So looking at that, our fatals, and I don't want to jinx anything, but the numbers are reflective that there is a decrease in fatal accidents. Our property damage, or sorry, our personal injuries were 163 in 2020 versus 63 to where we are right now. So that's, again, if we look at doubling that, we should be in 2021, we should see a decrease in property damage accidents. And property damage as well, there was 1,142 in 2020. And again, looking at the, if we were to double what we have right now in that column, we're going to be down significantly. But there's many factors that can change that. So this is just a summary of the collisions within the county, and I have been working with Chris Trainey, identifying some concerned areas and bringing some of our analytics forward to help with the road safety within Middlesex County. We do have 3 separate areas that the OPP are specifically focusing on, and then we have others that come through the communities. 3 areas that we are looking at right now for speed enforcement and driving behavior changes that are required. Richmond Road, essentially from north of Sunningdale up to Elgin Field. That's so primarily all Middlesex Center. We have enforcements ongoing there. Glendon Drive and Vanek, we had a spike in collisions in that area, so we're having enforcement there. Longwoods, again, within the just there's varying areas of Longwoods as it stretches through a couple of municipalities. That's the strong straight stretches of roadway are enticing for speed. Thames Center has a few areas in Mawsley on Elgin Road or Highway 73 that we've had focused patrols on. So these the community concerns that come forward, we do send enforcement out there to verify that what the residents of the area are saying is correct, and if our numbers do support what we see, we'll start up a focus patrol. And what that does is it gives the officers specific areas that they know they have when they are doing enforcement that they have to attend and capture the statistical data that's required through either education or enforcement. So I'll leave it at that right now. If there's any other questions, Warden.
Okay, thank you for that update, Dean. Any questions of Officer Croker while he's here? Councillor Vanderheyden.
Yes, thank you very much for your report. It's always interesting to see statistics and try to figure out what's going on at different corners. As you know, and there's a couple of reports in our agenda today on problematic corners. And the problem is that the corners are engineered properly, they're signed properly, they even have like rumble strips that'll knock your teeth out of your mouth, and yet we have accidents. And you know, you're talking about education and enforcement. What else, is there anything else we can do to solve the issue of people just blaring through these stop signs? Because when they do, they're going at such a rate of speed that there are fatalities, and it's usually innocent fatalities, because you know, it's the people that are in the car that get hit that are usually the ones that reach the end of their life. And last time it was a 2-year-old. It's just like, it's as politicians and as members of our community, it just the one corner I'm talking about, obviously everyone knows, is Melbourne and Glendon. It's a straightaway both ways. You can see every which way. The stop signs are large, and yet people go through them. So what can we do? We can't have a police officer standing there every single day. Although, you know, if you want to go be our guest, I'll bring you coffee or whatever you want. No problem. But so I guess the question is, what else can we do?
Councillor through the warden. Yeah, that is. I wish I had a definitive answer as to what we could be doing. I know working with Chris, and Chris, I know you're waiting for some information from me. I had to send another email. I should have something by tomorrow. One of the things that Chris Trainee and I have been back and forth on, and it's the delay on our part is why he's not been able to bring anything forward to you, is what else that we can do. Yes, because rumble strips are in effect. There's no signage issues per se. There's no shrub. The signs, everything are wide open, and especially Councillor, in the intersection that you're talking about is well known to us as well, and unfortunately has over the years has had its share of accidents. Something that we are looking at, and Chris brought forward, and we're just trying to get the clarification is, what can we do to increase the visibility of signage? Can we introduce LED lights? So at nighttime, and no different than an emergency vehicle. You may not see things until you see a flashing light, and then it's just that flashing light catches your attention. And does that change behavior? So we're just looking, or I'm waiting to find out from our experts at our provincial traffic operations section, if we make modifications, or if the county makes modifications to a stop sign by adding LED lights, adding anything that changes the specifications of the sign as it's laid out in the regulations of the Highway Traffic Act, is it still officially a stop sign? And that's right now, that's, other than having an officer, as you say, at every intersection in the county, would be the only way that we could guarantee complete safety and compliance, because we have had events where people have been stopped at stop signs, and so they've done everything right. The sign, the intersection has worked out properly. It was, but they're inattentive, and then they drive forward, and then they are driving into oncoming vehicles, and that's how we correct the inattentiveness. That does come to an education piece, and that would, the OPP would gladly work with the county and joint messaging, especially, if different times of the year are worse than others for road distractions that we need to look at, such as the fall when the deer are running, to have those type of education pieces out at that time. So, Councillor, I wish for everybody on this call and for all the our community members in Middlesex County, I wish I had a hard and fast. I'd be able to say this is what's missing to make every intersection safe. It does come down to driver behavior, and it's sometimes it's negligent, such as the ones that are speeding. Other times it's inattentiveness on the driver's part, and sadly, tragic accidents happen from those moments of inattentiveness.
Follow up, Joanne.
If I could, Madam Warden, just a quick follow-up. So there are other counties that have, those lights on stop signs, et cetera. So the OPP covers a very large area. Okay, that would be all of Ontario. So is there an opportunity, well, most of Ontario, would there be an opportunity to talk to your colleagues at the other counties to find out why they were allowed to put them in their communities and what the significant, if it made a difference, that kind of?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And the only reason that's I'm following through with our general headquarters was because Chris had different information as to whether they might be enforceable or not. And quite often, and I still don't know the answer, so I'll speak of kind of just in generalities right now, but what's happening in other municipalities, let's say, for example, if a modification to a sign is not allowed, the fact that they've done it and they've increased visibility is fine, and it would only become an issue if there's a court challenge. And at that point in time is when we would learn that the change of the signage was not appropriate. So, and I appreciate Chris reaching out to me to find out so that we didn't go down a path. But to that, I will look to see what other municipalities have done in Southwestern Ontario, see what successes they've had through their analytics. And personally speaking, and this is just, I can't see how adding lights to make a sign brighter or more visible would take away from the legality of the sign. So from a kind of a common sense approach. To me, that just makes sense. We have street lights, we have lights at all our intersections. So to me, that right now, I can't see a reason why they would be illegal, not illegal, but where they would take away from the legality of that stop sign. But from Chris's standpoint and ours as well, we may as well make sure that we've got the right course of action as we move forward. And that, but yeah, I can't see why not. And I also see where there's going to be a benefit. So again, it'd be that visual distraction to catch somebody's attention with a flashing light or whatever it is. And perhaps that's enough to change the driving behavior.
Are you good with that, Councillor Vanderheyden, this time? Okay. Any other questions for Dean? Councillor Mayhew? You're muted, Alan.
Thank you.
There you go.
Yes, I'm in cottage country and my connectivity is somewhat precarious. Thank you very much, Madam Warden. Thank you, Dean Croker, for that report. Commander Croker, I just want to emphasize the fact we seem to be infatuated with LED lights on stop signs. So the direction was for engineering to look at light as an element of awareness. We're not stuck on LED stop signs. There's various components of light that can be given to any situation, including a flashing red light suspended on a hydro line with amber lights in the case of the intersection in question, the one of controversy. In the north-south directions, there would be flashing red. In the east-west direction, there'd be flashing amber. But those are throughout the province of Ontario. And I don't want to get hung up on LED lights on stop signs. We asked for opinions on light as an element of stimulation. And I just hope that is, we've said this in the past, that light to increase awareness, and that can come in many forms. Thank you.
Okay.
Councilor Mayhew, yeah, thank you for that. And the LED around the stop sign, that was one area that I was looking at specifically, but no, you're absolutely correct. The amber and red lights that do hang from hydro poles in the middle of an intersection, yeah, those are throughout the province, and that doesn't change the configuration of a stop sign. So I was looking to try and get as much information on all types of lighting situations to bring back to the county engineer, so that there would be a multifaceted approach if it was required.
Any other questions? I think did I see Councillor DeViet's hand up? Yes.
Thank you, Warden, through you to Commander Croker. Thank you for that report. It's always great to get an update, and so I guess we can muse about why the reasons are there for the changes. But you mentioned 911 calls. I think it was the first slide that you were going through. I just want to clarify: is that beginning? Is it becoming a problem in our area? I know there are other jurisdictions across the province where they've had significant issues and associated costs with the 911, and that is missed dials and all that kind of thing. I just wondered, is that becoming important here in Middlesex County?
It is not. So the short answer is that the accidents happen. There's the pocket dials and whatnot, but the numbers are not anywhere that would be alarming for the county or any particular municipalities that it would skew any billing or any cost for household or those type of things. So it's there are municipalities that have, with outside Middlesex, that do have issues, such as the City of London. Middlesex County is not an issue per se.
Okay, thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Okay, any other questions or comments? I guess I just have one, and I was just thinking about this as your report went on, Dean, but does the OPP rank intersections in areas as to the most dangerous? I mean, I think we've all seen media reports in the past about certain intersections, that have more accidents than others, but is there a ranking that the OPP does have?
Not one, and I think that information would be available. I probably put a request in to see what the top 10 are. The OPP per se doesn't, just because of all the amount of intersections that we have across the entire province. So they would probably leave it up to a more of a regional approach,
Right.
because if Central Region and East Region are the top 10, the rest of the province, selfishly would be not too concerned about it. But having said that, I can look into that and report back.
I just did wonder, because we've had many discussions about certain intersections, across the county, and even if there was that information, for our area, I think that might be good information that we have going forward as we make decisions with regards to road safety. So. Okay, thank you. All right, one last call for questions or comments. Okay, seeing none, thank you very much, Dean. It was great having you here this afternoon. And I know that you're always very good at responding should a question or query come across your desk. So I would encourage council to reach out to Dean if you have any further questions on reflection after his presentation.
And Warden, if I may just one more thing, please. And I don't want to bore you with it, because I know you've heard the success story that we've had. Just something to share with the rest of councilors and staff.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm all for this.
I'm very proud to say that the Middlesex OPP has partnered up with Canadian Mental Health to form. It's not a Middlesex only, but we've definitely put a Middlesex touch on it. So we now have an officer who's dedicated to working with a Canadian mental health worker, social worker, during the peak times when we have mental health calls. In 2016, 2017, 2018, when we looked at a 3-year stat, just before I became attached commander, mental health calls had increased 66% over that 3-year period. The unfortunate piece to that is most of the mental health services are within the City of London, and rural Middlesex was not being, our residents who were in crisis weren't receiving the care that they deserved. So with the formation of this, we call it MCERT, it's a Mobile Crisis Rapid Response Team. We have a clinician that's is riding with the police officers. So we have an officer's dedicated to mental health calls during our peak times, and they will, when the call comes in, they go out and start dealing with it. So quite often what's happening now is a person in crisis, or just having that mental health episode, they are being treated at home. They're not, by having the expert there that's able to identify whether it's whatever the stimulus is for that mental health crisis, they're able to make referrals. They're able to ensure there's a safety plan in place. Where prior to, before the clinicians were with us, the officer would have to make a decision whether that person and family could handle that situation. And then if not, then we would look at having to take the person to the hospital. And while we're trying to take away from the stigma of mental health, we're not doing a good job when somebody who's in crisis is being taken to the emergency department with 2 police officers. They can be the most caring, compassionate police officers in the world, but everybody else in the emergency room is seeing 2 police officers and somebody that's not having a great day, and it just draws the attention to them. So for this program started, we successfully, with the partnership with mental health, went before the Southwest LHIN and have secured permanent funding for 1 position as of right now. And that's, well, actually 2 positions, because we were in partnership with Strathroy Caradoc Police. So they have a full-time person working in their service. We have a full-time person. And we're, with the stats that have come in so early, I will be looking to increase that, going back for additional funding, probably within a year or so, to augment some of the other services we have. But just real quickly, in these stats I have from November until May of this year, our mental health worker and officer responded to 476 different calls. Those are live calls that were going on, or the big area was the follow-up calls, which is where they were able to actually prevent those calls from coming back in. Is they've identified somebody who needs some attention, just some follow-up visits. So they're going back out proactively dealing with those community members and their families to offer the support. What we've done by helping out both Strathroy Middlesex General Hospital and LHSC is just the OPP aside, and Strathroy Caredoc's stats are very similar to ours, as we diverted 46 people from having to go to the hospital because they were able to get care at home as opposed to an officer having to take them to the hospital. So this is a program I'm very proud of. I've got two amazing officers that got off the ground running. It was one of the easiest things I've ever had to do is just say go, and they ran with it and formed partnerships. And both of them were just recently recognized by Canadian Mental Health as Champions of Mental Health Award, and we're recipients of that. So wasn't anything that was formally in my my presentation, Warden, but I just wanted to bring forward. I know you're well aware of it. I just want to ensure the other councillors in the county were aware of an additional service that has gone on. And as I mentioned, it's fully funded from the Southwest LHIN. There's no additional policing costs to it. Actually, what we're seeing is reallocation of hours, because with the 46 diversions that have occurred from the hospital, when we look at anywhere from a 2 to 4 hour typical wait time for an officer to see a doctor at the hospital with a patient, that translates into 11 working days for one officer, and there's always two. So we're looking at 22 working days already since November that we've been able to put back to the road. So it's a win-win for everybody. And at the end of the day, selfishly, I get to look at, okay, we're allocating our time elsewhere, which is great, back into the communities where you want to see us. But more importantly is our community members who are struggling are getting the right help and care immediately and don't have to necessarily go to a hospital. So with that, I will stop talking. I know you have a full agenda, and but I do appreciate your time and allowing me to share that good news story.
Well, certainly, yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. We had Aaron and we had the chief from Strathroy Caradoc join us for a women's caucus event with women across the county. So we've been updated there, and I know a number of our communities have had the update, but thank you for sharing it at the county level. It really is a win-win situation, and to get it up and running during a pandemic, congratulations to all involved. So, and with that, thanks for joining us.
Thanks very much. Take care, everybody, and I'm available anytime anybody needs to reach me.
Great, thanks. Take care. Okay, moving on. Any inquiries or notices of motion? Okay, into reports and new business. And the first one is from Chief Roberts, the Ontario Ombudsman's report into land ambulance investigations. Chief.
Thank you, Warden, and through you to members of council. So this report is to provide you an update regarding a recent report that was released by the Ontario Ombudsman. In April of 2018, the Ontario Ombudsman, Paul Dubé, notified the Ministry of Health that he was launching a systemic investigation into land ambulance investigations within the province of Ontario. Shortly after that announcement, the Ombudsman then received 72 further complaints from the public with regards to concerns regarding how the ministry was investigating. The report was released on Thursday, May the 20th, 2021, so almost 3 years after it initially started. Partly that was due to COVID. And the report itself contained 53 recommendations, all of which were accepted by the Deputy Minister of Health. So my understanding is the Ombudsman's report is a little different than the Auditor General's report, which the government can accept or modify the recommendations, where the recommendations coming from an ombudsman must be accepted by the province and implemented. The Ministry of Health has up to 2 years to implement the 53 recommendations. They have committed to implementing 16 of those recommendations within the first 6 months, and they are also required to follow up with the ministry with regards, or with the Ombudsman with regards to how they're moving forward. Some of the areas that were identified by the Ombudsman's report are listed in my report itself. There are going to be ongoing discussions between the Ministry of Health and the Ontario Association of Paramedic Chiefs and AMO with regards to the impact that this report will have on municipal ambulance service delivery, as well as Orange and base hospitals and the Ministry of Health 22 dispatch centers throughout the province, because they all come under the oversight of the Ministry of Health for investigations. Our service here at Middlesex London Paramedic Service has begun working through this report to identify areas that we need to focus more on, and best practices that we already have in place, but also areas that we feel that we need to shore up. And we will be coming back to council in the very near future with a more detailed report on any impact that this will have to our service, and more specifically on improving our oversight, our investigations, and how we can align with the Ombudsman's recommendations. So at this time, Warden, the recommendation is that County Council just receive the report for information. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that, Chief. Any questions for Neil on this? Okay, I don't see any hands up. So I just would ask for a mover and a seconder to accept the report for information with future findings to be shared with council. If I can get a mover and a seconder. Councillor Ropp. And a seconder. Councillor Elliott. All opposed? And that's carried. Okay, and sticking with Middlesex London Paramedic Service, we have a request for proposal for uniforms.
Thank you, Madam Warden. I'm actually going to hand this report or the overview over to Colin Heisey, who is one of our team members that work with the Deputy CEO and County Treasurer on this award. So Colin, over to you, sir.
Thank you, Chief. Through the Warden to Council, Middlesex London Paramedic Service issued a request for proposal on March the 15th of this year, inviting proponents to bid on supplying uniforms to Middlesex London Paramedic Service. The request for proposal closed on April 6th, and 6 bids were received. As part of the RFP, the term of the agreement would begin upon award and would continue until December 31st, 2025, with Middlesex London Paramedic Service having the option to renew the agreement for 4 additional 1-year periods based on the same terms and conditions. Middlesex London Paramedic Service evaluated the bids, and based on the technical and financial criteria set out in the request for proposal, the evaluation team consisted of frontline paramedics, management team members from Middlesex London Paramedic Service, as well as the General Manager of Finance and Community Services for Middlesex County. Based on the evaluation process, Talbot Uniforms obtained the overall highest score. In alignment with the strategic focus, the purchase supports the ongoing commitment of Middlesex London Paramedic Service to provide service excellence to the citizens of Middlesex County and the City of London by ensuring that service uniforms meet the emerging needs of expectations of paramedics and staff. This includes uniforms that are cost effective, meet current health and safety requirements, and ensure that industry standards are met and maintained. So the recommendation to Council is that the bid submitted by Talbot Uniforms be accepted by County Council, and that the Chief be authorized to enter into an agreement with Talbot Uniforms, authorizing them to supply Middlesex London Paramedic Service with all required uniforms for the term of the agreement. Thank you, and we would be happy to answer any questions Council may have.
Great. Well, thanks for that, Colin, and it's great to have you join us today. Any questions? Councillor Vanderheyden.
Yes, thank you, through the Warden. Thank you, Colin, for that. I read the report, and but I always go back to the list of 6, and I'm just assuming that all 6 do uniforms for a living, because that's why they put their quote in. So when I see a non-compliant, well, that takes it off the list immediately. But when I see a difference between the top bidder and the lowest bidder, then I always wonder why the lowest bidder really was that low. And then I also wonder, you know, the top three were very, very close to each other. So what made one stand out more than another to make me satisfied that by taking the highest bidder, we're doing the right thing?
Yeah, through the warden. So the team consisted of 7 people, and those 7 people, I guess what made the highest bidder successful was the technical criteria was weighted at 65%, and through when we look at health and safety, we look at the quality of the uniforms, we look at and also the price. When you take the total of all those things, that is what set the Talbot uniforms ahead of the other proponents. So it wasn't just one specific thing, it was a combination of the price point, but along with the technical requirements that are required for operations.
Okay with that, Councillor Vanderheyden? Okay. Any other questions, comments? Okay, there is a recommendation in front of you, and I would look for a mover and seconder for that, please. Councillor Mayhew, and seconder, Councillor Warwick. All opposed? That's carried. Thank you very much. Moving on, we've got a request for proposal for general land use planning consulting services, and this one will be presented by Dirk.
Thank you, Madam Warden. And I know you didn't have this report in front of you for a long time, so I'll go over it in a bit more detail. But essentially, we're looking to retain as many as 2 consultants to provide general land use planning services on an as-needed or project-by-project basis, both to do sort of day-to-day if needed work, and then also special project in those larger projects. So we haven't done an RFP like this before, so we did do a new proposal with the county solicitor, with David, and helped us sort of set that RFP up. Included in there were requirements that they would be able to provide a high level of services at competitive prices. It was a requirement that they have agricultural and small town and rural experience and background, and also a requirement that they have registered professional planners on staff. And so what made this RFP different than the typical way where we're purchasing a particular good is it doesn't provide a guarantee regarding the level of projects or work. There is no minimum value. It's really, the RFP does set a maximum value at $30,000, and that is for the benefit of county council, so you know how large this could be. But really the individual tasks would be assigned by myself as needed as we go forward, and they could be allocated between the 2 consultants that would be in this consultant pool, if you will. The RFP is for 1 year, and the $30,000 is included in the approved budget. There is an ability to extend that 1 year upon mutual agreement, and that would be subject to next year's budgeting process, of course. Also included in this RFP, some new wording where local municipalities could take advantage of this process. If they had a particular project that they wanted to accomplish locally, they could just piggyback onto this RFP rather than go back out to another one. So we did receive 7 proposals. They were evaluated against a rated requirements evaluation criteria and a methodology that was set out in the RFP to establish the proposals that meet the best overall value. Of the 7, the top 2 ranked were GSP Group and Monteith Brown Planning Consultants. They had the highest 2 proposals. And based on that, that is my recommendation that they be enter into agreements with those 2 firms for the one next year. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Thank you, Dirk. Questions for Dirk on this report? Councillor Vanderheyden.
Yes, thank you, through the warden. I always wonder about hiring people on retainer, because you're giving money away to an organization just so that we have them on standby for things that we need done. So then a couple questions come to mind. Once you have the retainer, that's to keep them on available. And then when we have projects, you pay extra on top of that, obviously, for the work that they're going to be doing. So, you know, you really don't know what the cost is going to be in the end. So why would we not hire another planner in-house in order to facilitate the extra work that we're looking for?
Through the warden. So they're in this particular contract that Wayne's folks did up for us, or the RFP. There is no sort of initial retainer. It is just that they agreed to do this sort of work at hourly rates, and so it would be billed as the work is undertaken. And in terms of using a contractor versus staff, it is always that balance. And there's a couple of reasons I think that I would be looking in this case to try this. And one is sort of expertise, where we have firms that have done, for instance, official plan reviews and some of that work, not only within the county and elsewhere, and they could draw that, bring that experience to us. And then the other is simply sort of to be expeditious in getting things done. Where at times when we have staff turnover, we struggle to, it does take some time to bring somebody else on board and then to train them. And as I've said to you before, we've had some difficulties in the past little while. It's a competitive market right now to get experienced planners. And so I think my recommendation is to try this while we still also are backfilling our actual planners.
Follow up?
So I'm sorry, through the warden, I'm confused. So that $30,000 is not money that we give them as a retainer. It's just, that's if we hire them, that's the top number of what we are going to give them. Like it's the upset limit. I don't understand why it's not a retainer. What's unless I'm hooked on the wrong word here.
Through the warden, yeah. So maybe my language isn't as clear. This is a different contract or a different RFP than we've done in the past in the sense. So yeah, what we're asking for is basically they bid on an hourly rate. Certain staff persons with certain expertise, it would be so much an hour based on their complement of staff. The upset limit is a guarantee to council and to the applicants or the RFP respondents that the total amount would not exceed $30,000 over the next year, but there is no minimum amount. There's no guarantee amount. So their submission is that they will do this sort of work on an individual task basis, but to a maximum of $30,000, but there is no sort of minimum amount of funding that they will get.
Okay, Councillor Vander Hayden.
So again, since I don't see anything on here, like what is the hourly rate? Like how long will it take for us to go through that $30,000? Is it worth having them on staff for a year? Is that like, all depends what we give them, I suppose. So there's lots of these questions running around my mind that you kind of wonder, is this the value that we're looking for to get the work done that we need done?
Through the warden, yeah. So the hourly rates, it depends on the staff. So they're, I don't want to get, if it's okay with council, I didn't want to get into individual firms and what their hourly rates are for different staff people. But you can, a typical firm would have, senior people, intermediate and junior, and they have different rates based on that. So that was part of the criteria, but the hourly rate wasn't the only thing. In fact, it wasn't even the largest. It was sort of the strength of mandatory requirements. It was their experience. And then also on the flip side is private clients that they have in the county and the ability to manage and do work for the county municipalities and not have conflict with individual private clients that they had. So it was a balance of those items.
Anything else, Councillor Vander Hayden? Okay. Any other questions? Councillor Smith.
Through the warden to Dirk. Generally, I'm looking forward to having this. There's been a number of projects, well, not a number of projects, but looking, specifically at, say, our official plan and Adelaide Metcalf and zoning bylaw, the comprehensive look at that after the OP is completed. Some of these projects have been, well, it's been a while since we looked at those, and I know that it's with staffing and everything that's going on, there's a lot of subdivision agreements, a lot of other projects that are happening throughout the county, and sometimes some of those larger projects are kind of put to the side because they're not as big of a pressing issue. So I'm looking forward to having this, and yes, those dollar amounts are high, but I'm assuming that will be covered. So for example, Adelaide Metcalf, when we go do our official plan review, will each lower tier municipality be charged an amount for those special projects, or will that just be through the levy and certain municipalities will kind of I guess I'm not going to use the word, but I will take advantage of this service that is coming from Monteith Brown and GSP Group.
Through the warden, I guess it would depend on which municipality. So some municipality a particular municipality might not have GSP do any work for them, but then they might have Tim Williams, our senior planner, doing work for them. So I wouldn't say that every municipality is guaranteed to have both of these firms or any particular person involved in the municipality. We try to get the work done as best we can across all of the municipalities. And in particular, some firms, if they had a couple of clients in a particular municipality, then they probably would be, I wouldn't use them there. I would direct them to another place where they didn't have any kind of perceived conflict, and then we'd use our own staff as best.
Any follow-up?
No, that's okay.
Okay. Councillor DeVete.
Thank you, through you to Dirk. Thank you for this report, Dirk. I think you've kind of answered my question. My question was going to be around the how will it work? So Monteith is on the list here. I know they work on files for us. I was wondering how, if a junior person is doing part of the work for ours, for something on our side of the fence, if you will, versus something that's coming. I just wondered, I think you just said you're going to make sure that any files that are assigned to people who are associated with the firm then will be reviewed to make sure that the topic of discussion won't be anything that causes anyone around the horseshoe at the local level concern.
Yes, to the warden, that is the goal. And in terms of oversight, we still, myself or our other staff will still be reviewing and sort of doing that confirmation of work that any consultants would be doing.
Councillor Ropp.
Thank you, through the warden, to Dirk. Dirk, first of all, I like this report, and I have to say I'm in support of it because you're finding solutions to the load and the overload, I guess I should say, of planning issues around the county. And so I'm very much in support of going through this way, so we do have trained planners then that are coming in to do it, instead of, as you said, training someone to catch up.
Okay, any other questions? I see Councillor Vanderheyden's hand up again. I just might ask a quick question. Just off the top of your head, Dirk, I guess my question would be, do you have any sense of how often you'd be using either of the consultants?
It's a difficult question to answer. I can say for sure we have, to be frank, we have one staff person that leaves the end of this week. And so, over the next couple of weeks, we would be using a firm to help with that, along with sort of spreading it out amongst our other planners. But we have a lot of work right now, to be frank. And so I would expect that on a monthly basis right now, trying to keep on top of this and then trying to get to some of those larger things that we're not getting to as fast as we'd like to. I would expect it to be sort of monthly going forward.
Okay. And just as follow up to that, would there be at the 6-month mark, like a review? Could council be updated as to how they're being used, how that's working out, that sort of thing?
Yeah, through the warden, absolutely. If you would like that, that would be sort of at your prerogative. Okay.
All right. Councillor Vanderheyden.
Yeah, just a quick question. I understand the concept behind the report, and I understand that there's things that are building up because the county, all the municipalities are really busy right now. So I get all of that. I agree with Councillor Ropp in that. But Councillor Smith asked about levy or charge out. Like, is this just going to go on the levy, or is this going to be charged out to the municipalities that require the extra work?
Through the warden, this would be levy money. So we do try to do special project work and try to keep up with development activity right across the county. There are, of course, some things that are beyond the scope. And of course, the Strathroy Caradoc, as you know, there's a significant OP review among other large projects right now. And that would be beyond the scope of county staff to undertake. So there is that balance of trying to do projects for all municipalities, but also within sort of our scope of practice and within our abilities.
Any other questions? Councillor Warwick.
Yes, thank you. And just through the warden to you, Dirk, I too am in favor of this report. And I know that this time of year, we need planners and we need to hit the ground running because all of us have a lot of things going. And I know a number of us have an official plan review as well. So I would say that I think we just need to get this done and get on board and go ahead with as much planning as we can get done throughout this busy season.
Okay, any other comments? Okay, so you've got a recommendation in front of you, and I would ask for a mover and a seconder on that, please. Councillor Ropp. And a seconder. Councillor DeVitt. All opposed? And that's carried. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to councillor comments, other business. Councillor Ropp.
Right. You probably all know about this unless you've been living under a rock, but I just wanted to say that Taya Curry has become the first female player drafted in the OHL Hockey League, and I want to congratulate her. It was in the 14th round. Just the fact that she was drafted is pretty special and pretty amazing. And of course, she's a barrel racer, Allison, so you know she's got to be good, right? Wanted to pass
and
out.
she plays the toughest position, goalie, right?
Okay.
I just wanted to add that in.
Yes, I know. But I just want everyone to know, and good on her and her family.
Absolutely, Brian, no question. Congratulations, pass on our best wishes. It really is quite an accomplishment. Any other councillor comments? Councillor Vanderheyden.
Well, I just have to say, and Larry Cowan would be upset if I didn't mention this, his nephew, Easton, who has played in the Strathroy Caradoc for his entire career, has been drafted by the London Knights. So lots of activity there, and we're very excited for him. I mean, these young players are looking at decisions that they have to make for the next little while that are pretty tough. Who do you join, and then how do you move forward with the career that they're very passionate about? So very excited for the Cowan family and for Easton and the hard work that he did moving forward in his career.
Great, thanks. Joanne, again,
Larry's probably already sitting over in the corner waiting for him to start.
Any other councillor comments? I might just, did you have your hand up again, Joanne?
Yeah, sorry, just one thing, and I have to say a great big thank you to all of my colleagues on Middlesex County Council for the support that you've given me over the last number of years. I know we talked about the FCM piece, but I just want to say thank you for the notes that I've received, for the incredible opportunity I had to meet with some of our fellow councillors the other day when we were viewing the proceedings at the convention. And I just want to say, you know, it's amazing to have a group of colleagues that support you in moving forward to different organizations. And I know that I've always said that since I was on council, that everybody needs to take every opportunity they can to learn and to be at the table, so that the decisions that are made are decisions that we know about, and everybody else is not making those decisions for us. So I just want to say thank you to each and every one of you.
Great. Thank you, Joanne. Okay. Any other comments? So I just have a brief update on where we are with the Middlesex London Paramedic Service vaccine program. And I believe that at our next meeting, there'll be more of a formal update coming from Neil and Bill. But I'm pleased to say that the initial 1,000 doses that we were allotted have arrived, and the first set of doses is going out in the community tomorrow, and this will be distributed through paramedicine, obviously, to community members who are can't get out to clinics and are really bound at home. So that's exciting, and pleased that we're able to get to those members of the community. But I'm also pleased to say that we have another $1,000 doses that have been committed to Middlesex London Paramedic Services, and those will be going out primarily through workplaces, and clinics have already been set up in the Middlesex London region, because as noted, it is a program for the whole region. So just an update there. And I want to thank again Community Paramedicine and the team over at Middlesex London Paramedicine, or our Paramedic Services, for running with this. And it will be exciting to see these clinics take off in the next week or so. Okay, if there's no more councillor comments, then bylaws. Kathy.
We have two bylaws today. Bylaw 7113, a bylaw to authorize a collective agreement between Unifor Local 302 and the County of Middlesex for the period January 1st, 2021 to December 31st, 2023. And bylaw 7114, a bylaw to confirm proceedings of the Council of the Corporation of the County of Middlesex for June 8th, 2021.
Excuse me. If I can get a mover and a seconder for the first and second reading of these bylaws. Councillor Smith and Councillor Richards. And a mover and all opposed. That's carried. And a mover and a seconder for the third and final reading, please. Councillor Cornelissen and Councillor Mayhew, all opposed, and that's carried. Moving into the committee of the whole, we do have some reports from county officers, and the first one is from Dirk, and it is an exemption for a proposed plan of condominium. Dirk.
Okay, thank you, Madam Warden. If you feel like you've seen this before, it is very similar to or almost identical to the one across the road that you dealt with last year. And it's a 1 hectare property within a subdivision that's under development and on full municipal services. And it would allow for the construction of 44 2-story townhouses. A request has been received to exempt the development from the full condominium approval process. And really what that does is it allows, in a case where there are no further development matters, where they've already been dealt with by the underlying plan of subdivision, it allows a proponent to bypass the typical draft plan and final plan approval process for a condominium. So in this case, I am satisfied that that is an appropriate approach to this condominium, as is the township, and the township council has done this by motion. So in the end, it is my opinion that the condominium is consistent with the provincial policy statement. It conforms with both official plans, and that it would be appropriate to exempt it from the full condominium approval process as set out in Section 51 of the Planning Act. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, questions for Dirk on this one? Okay, seeing none, then a mover and a seconder for the recommendation in front of you. Councillor Mayhew and a seconder. Councillor Elliott. All opposed? And that's carried. Thank you. Sticking with Dirk, proposed plan of subdivision.
Okay, thank you. This is a proposed, pull up the right file here. This is a proposed development in Mount Bridges. And if of course you're familiar with the area, it's sort of in behind the existing development that is along County Road 14. It would create 20 lots for single attached dwellings, 8 lots for semi-detached, for 16 semi-detached dwellings, and then a block for approximately 25 townhouse dwellings. I would suggest it's a really good example, in my opinion, of development of underutilized parcels within an existing settlement area at a greater intensity while still fitting with the community. So the municipal planning report and the background information, including a copy of proposed draft plan conditions, are attached and to this report. The submission was initially accepted as complete in January 2020, and it went through an open house and statutory public meetings, and ultimately was supported in April of this year by Strathspey-Caradoc Council. The matters that were identified were addressed, either were addressed or can be addressed, such as the Conservation Authority, the county engineer, and the municipality's more standard development requirements. So in the end, I am satisfied that the proposal is, again, consistent with the provincial policy statement meets the tests in our official plans, and represents sound land use planning. Therefore, I am recommending approval.
Okay. Thank you, Dirk. Questions on this one? Councillor Vanderheyden.
Thank you, Dirk, for that report. This one is a difficult one for us. It's appropriate, and it's something that we need to, all of us, I think, consider, and that's the infilling piece. You know, when people live in an area and for their entire time living in those houses along the highway, they didn't have anybody behind them. Now suddenly they're going to have people in what they figured was their green space. It's always an interesting exercise to go through. So I thank you for your support, as this is perfect infilling. We're not using farmland or anything like that. So I think it's a good spot for these homes.
Thank you. There aren't any other comments or questions. Can I get a mover and a seconder for the proposed recommendation in front of you? Councillor Warwick, and a seconder. Councillor Brennan. All opposed? And that's carried. Thank you. Okay, intersection safety update. And this report is from Chris.
Thank you, Madam Warden. I have a couple of reports that are directly related. The first report is just an information update for council. And then the second report is to deal with, what they term as LETs, which is LED or LED type signs. So with the concerns that were raised in the previous meeting about Glendon Drive and Melbourne Road, we did more of a detailed safety analysis of that intersection. And the good news is we're seeing positive results. So as council knows, and as we talked about earlier in the report, we were dealing with a frequent number of collisions at this intersection, including a fatality of a young child at that intersection due to a failure to yield. A truck ran the stop sign and unfortunately had a fatality. And at that time, along with a couple of other intersections, we were receiving a number of complaints about red stop sign running. We implemented a enhanced rumble strip program, which I'm going to come back to you with at a future meeting once we have the rest of the data from the OPP on those collisions, to talk about how that program is going so far. And we are in the middle of a pilot. It's a pilot program. We're still in the middle of that. But so far, things have been very positive where those have been installed. So Glendon and Melbourne Drive is very typical to many other intersections, not only across the county, but across Ontario. Very clear sight lines. We're at 90-degree angles at the intersection. We are seeing low delays to drivers who are trying to cross the main road. We would call Glendon Drive, in this sense, the main road. Melbourne Road would be our minor road approach. And we're not seeing delays to drivers sitting at a stop sign for an extended period of time to make turns as well. So it functions at a good level of service. And a driver acting in a reasonable manner under normal conditions should be able to maneuver through this intersection safely. We have done a few things here at this intersection over the past number of years, not including the rumble strips. We have paid very close attention to the vegetation around this intersection. Those of you familiar with the area know that our works garage for what we call our District 3 or our Melbourne garage is right there at this corner. And therefore, we pay extra attention to the vegetation growth around that intersection. We have removed other obstructions, and one of the main sort of distractions there is the I call it a billboard type sign with a number of different advertisements on that sign that had been cleaned up and moved further back from the intersection. It was a little bit closer previously, but when they built the new sign, they built it behind the old sign and moved the advertising signage back. And we increased the size of the stop signs. We evaluated a number of different options for stop signs, twinning stop signs, but ultimately the guidance provided on the Ontario Traffic Manual guided us towards the single and large stop signs at the intersection. And again, the most effective measure that we've seen is the enhanced rumble strip. So the enhanced rumble strip program, they've been installed at 3 intersections across the county. They've been installed at Melbourne and Glendon Drive. They've been installed at Ilderton Road and Nairn Road, and at Nairn Road and Center Road. And basically how they work is traditional rumble strips really only are placed sort of in a pattern of 4 or 5 rumble strips. So, one sort of run of sensation for a driver as they approach the stop sign. What the research has told us is that more effective is for there to be a break. So a rumble, a break, and then another rumble. So the way the new, what we call them enhanced rumble strips are installed is there'll be a pair of rumble strips ahead of the stop ahead sign to give the driver an opportunity to know they're approaching the stop sign, and then a couple more rumble strips ahead of the actual stop sign itself. So if they didn't feel the first ones, they certainly will feel the second ones and give them a bit of a pause in between, which the research has shown gives a better chance for a driver to become aware that there is a sign ahead and a stop condition ahead. There were rumble strips at this intersection before. They had been worn down over the years, but we've milled these new ones in, and because they're milled rumble strips, are more aggressive. And again, we're working not only at this intersection, but at the others with regards to the aggressiveness of those rumble strips. Fortunately, we've had one collision post the installation of those rumble strips. We've got the data from the OPP, and my thanks to Dean for the presentation earlier and his team for getting us that data. From January of 2018 until mid-May of this year, they gave us the report. And again, post the installation of the rumble strips, there was one collision, and it was caused by someone stopping and pulling out into traffic. So we do not have evidence here of inadvertent or accidental running of the stop sign. There are some reports. Some people have reported some near misses in the recent history. And again, it's, in our opinion, it's the blatant ignorance of those stop signs. Part of that phenomenon, and this does happen in other areas, again, we have collisions that aren't happening at night, they're happening during the day when they do happen. And this is typical for these rural type intersections, which are wide open. We're seeing these types of drivers where you can see many, hundreds of meters in all directions. Drivers will not stop because they can see everywhere. There's no police. They can't see any police sort of hiding around. They can see the traffic approaching from a long distance away, and they make that risk calculation in their head. I can actually just blow through the stop sign at speed, get through that intersection, and not cause a collision. It's frightening. It is disrespectful to other travelers, but that's a type of activity that we see happen and we can't control with engineering measures. So that it's a challenge for road safety professionals across North America and the world, I would say. We are looking at working more closely, and as Dean mentioned earlier, we are working with them to talk more about educational programs and enforcement programs that we can provide to help get the message across. So one of the things we are talking about is whether we can do some kind of targeted messaging to haulers in the area. Some of the reports are that the truckers are the ones that are the culprits blowing the stop sign, causing these near misses. So we're talking about how do we target some education to let them know that this is dangerous and you shouldn't be doing that type of activity. We're also continuing to work with Ontario Good Roads Association, Municipal Engineers Association to get better access to collision data or meaningful collision data, so that we don't task our partners at the OPP to have to provide that to us. We can get that information more directly. And then again, provide better information to the public, to council, and make better decisions and more accurate and faster decisions about where we can target our road safety activities in Middlesex County. So that is the report. Recommendation. This is just an information report, just to let you know how things are going at Glendon Drive and Melbourne Road, especially post the enhanced rumble strips. I will have a more detailed report about the enhanced rumble strip pilot program and how it's going. We're just over a year into that program. and I can share results from those intersections that are reported at a future meeting. But I'll leave it at there. That is for information. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you for that report, Chris. Questions or comments on this report? Councillor Mayhew.
Thank you, Madam Warden. Comments? Joanne and I have brought this issue to the floor of County Council following many inquiries and concerns regarding the history of collisions and near misses at the Glendon Drive. Furthermore, in the last 2 weeks, I have advised Middlesex staff of 2 additional near misses and 2 individuals running that stop sign in the last 10 to 14 days. These, of course, are not statistics that will be entertained from the OPP, but these events I have followed up. They have come from our business community. Members of our business community have advised me of this. I have followed these. I have researched them. Members of our medical community have told me about this, and I have researched and followed up as to the authenticity of 2 people running those stop signs in the last 2 weeks. I ask that serious consideration be given to this report, and I certainly hope it's not done. It falls short of my expectations, and I hope that more information is forthcoming, and perhaps more creative thinking is forthcoming. Engineering was requested to determine the best and most effective element of light. LED stop signs were not to be the only consideration. And as I mentioned to Commander Crocker, at the very least, why can't a hydroland suspended red flashing light in the north-south bound direction and an amber light in the east-west bound direction be considered? Such examples, as I indicated, are throughout the county. Status quo will not enhance the awareness or mitigate driver distraction at these intersections. The last 2 weeks have firmly put in my mind that something has to be done here. The educational component that Chris is referring to and that Commander Croker is referring to, I remind Council that we have been educating people against the effects of smoking for years. We've been educating people about the dangers of drugs for years. And I really think that we need a visual awareness to bring a cautionary mindset to those traveling through this intersection. I respectfully ask my fellow councillors to engage in this discussion. You may very well find yourself and your ratepayers in a similar situation as Mayor Vanderheyden and myself. And I certainly hope this is not the end of the report that this council was expecting. Thank you, Madam Warden, very much for your time.
Thank you, Councillor Mayhew. Any other comments or questions? Councillor Brennan.
To you, Madam Warden, just a little bit of background. I was a volunteer fireman for 39 years, and I continue to see it now. We've had stoplights installed at several intersections along Medway Road, and there's still accidents there. Highbury Ave and Medway Road, right in Arva, and I travel through the stoplights at Medway and High Park Road all the time, and I see numerous near misses there. People go right through the red lights. So I concur with Councillor Mayhew that education is a big thing, because no matter what you put up, people still don't pay attention. And the concern is even when you put stoplights up, it creates the confidence in people. They think everybody's going to stop at a red light, and it causes more serious accidents because there are people who blow through red lights. And people think that they have the green light, they're going to go, and they don't even look to see if anybody's not stopping at a red light. So the concern is no matter what we put up there, people are going to disrespect the intersections and blow through things. So education is probably the thing that we have to try to get through to people. But in my experience, no matter what you do, people will be people, and they're still going to happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brennan. Councillor Vanderheyden.
Thank you. I unmuted in about a heartbeat there. Just to reiterate some of the things that are being said, like education is important, and we all know that. Enforcement is important. I go through this corner all the time, and I have never once, not ever, seen a police officer at that corner ever. So that I just might be there the wrong time. That's a possibility. But if we're talking enforcement, and I was kidding with him earlier by saying, I'd happy to bring coffee out there every day if somebody could stand there every day. Well, that's not practical. In Strathroy Carrick, we have the same thing. We have four-way stops, and people think, well, the other person's going to stop, and they just blare right through. I get it. But this is a corner where speed is also involved because it's 90 going both ways. So when something happened, it's catastrophic. There's no escaping from a near misses. That means they didn't touch each other, but any kind of touching of those cars, it becomes just they're in the ditch and somebody dies. So to say, we accept this report and we'll look forward to data. That I love data. I think data makes us make wise decisions. I also don't think the people that scream the loudest are the ones that make the best decisions. We have to do this in a proper way. But I also don't see not doing anything. Status quo is not going to work here for the next accident. So what can we do? I'm not saying we have to do a light on a corridor, we have to do a light on the stop sign, or we have to do stoplights, or we have to do a roundabout. And Mayor Mayhew hates roundabouts. I don't. But what can we do to make that a corner where we at least can protect people's lives for the people, as Councillor Brennan said, that don't pay attention, that are distracted, and they're just going to blow through a light, it's very frustrating because I don't think anybody is on this page has the answer, and yet we need an answer. And just saying, okay, we've accepted another report. Well, that's another report. We still haven't done anything.
I don't know whether Chris has that answer today.
Well, I can give you a response because we're talking about what can we do, and we got to remember, what have we done? We've got positive results here, everybody. Those enhanced rumble strips have saved lives. We saw a huge drop in the number of collisions at this intersection. We've had one since the rumble strips went in. So I know we want to do more. And I totally agree with comments here about how can we do more. But putting up another sign, putting up a light, engineering is only part of the equation. So I'm glad to hear their support for education. I'm very pleased with the support the OPP have given to me and to Middlesex County, not just on this issue, but over the years. And I agree, Joanne, and I can tell you that we have lobbied on the OPP's behalf. Councillor Warwick and Councillor Elliott and myself actually, and the warden met with our MPP to talk about the importance of giving support to OPP detachments across the province for additional traffic enforcement. So we're doing those things. So, and let's remember, we did a lot of things before the rumble strips as well. And if you're okay, Madam Warden, two quick things just to support what Councillor Brennan said. We don't just make these decisions out of thin air. We use guidelines, we use standards, we use regulations, and I often refer to warrants. Well, warrants are pretty important when you're talking about what to do at an intersection. And as Councillor Brennan mentioned, we try to stick to warrants for traffic signals because for that exact reason, you have this illusion that the person seeing the red light is always going to stop. That's not the case. And we have very serious injuries and fatalities at signalized intersections, more than we do at stop controlled intersections. So I think that's very important. But we have some opportunities here. My challenge, strictly from an engineering point of view, at this point is we have this rumble strip program. It's working. It's successful in the evidence that's provided in what we've seen out there. There's some challenges with it, and we're working towards helping to resolve some of those challenges. But it's effective. I would be remiss to make a recommendation to say another stop sign or a flasher is going to repair or remediate what the concern we're seeing right now. We did have a number of flashers across the county. They're almost all gone. We got council direction to remove those. We had a number of intersections where we were seeing fatalities with stop and pull out type of movements. People were stopping for the stop signs, true, but there was inconsistency with behavior of drivers where they assumed a flasher meant a four-way stop. And unfortunately, we saw a number of collisions that could only have been caused by someone making that assumption. So we removed those and saw collisions drop. In my opinion, a flasher at this intersection is going to increase the severity of the collisions we're seeing because of that misconception that people will assume cross traffic is going to stop. I do think LED stop signs are a good tool. And in my next report, I'll talk about some of the challenges that are presented to us right now for implementing those. But again, I think it's important to realize we have done a number of things here, and those measures have been successful. And I agree with Councillor Brennan. Well, there are near misses everywhere across this county. We are challenged with near misses across this county, across every municipality, and all of them are traumatic to the people who are involved. All of them should be taken seriously, but we have a challenge there because, again, it's a system where we just have inaccurate data. The data is not reported. We don't know exactly what happened in those near misses, and there's so many of them. So it's challenging for us. Near misses is one of those things where we'd love to capture that data, because a near miss is a collision that didn't happen, but maybe there's something we could have done to prevent that, even that near miss from happening. But I'll leave it there, Madam Warden. Apologize, but just a couple of points.
Okay. Any other further questions or comments? I see Councillor Mayhew's hand up, but maybe just before I circle back to you, I have a couple questions, Chris. Just to be clear, the pilot project for the rumble strips, it's 2 years and we are a year into it. Is that the right timing?
Yes, Madam Warden, that was our intent, was to have the rumble strips in place for a couple of years and then evaluate at all 3 intersections. At all 3.
So I guess in fairness, to get a firm, if that's your pilot and your test, you want to see it play out for the 2 years, correct? And not to change that, because if you change it at one intersection, how does that affect against the data that you're collecting at other intersections, right?
To a limited degree, we are making some changes because of some negative side effects to rumble strips. So, for example, cyclists had a challenge, so we smoothed out the edge of the rumble strips at Ilderton Road to make sure the cyclists had a smooth area to get through. And we are cognizant of the fact, because they're so aggressive, we're doing some things to sort of help lower the aggressiveness of those. We haven't, fortunately, the ones at Nairn Road and Center Road we're not touching, so that will be sort of our control. That's the one that's not going to be adjusted at all, and we're doing some minor adjustments to the other 2.
Okay, so there are some minor adjustments being done at the Melbourne and Glendon, so that's kind of the shaving back of them. And okay, okay, I think, was that it? You see, now you got me thinking about something else. And I guess maybe to that point, there's a number of times the comments have been brought up about this particular report that you've brought forward doesn't go far enough. And I guess I would say your thought is at the end of the year, then there'd be more, you'd have more fulsome data to make more of a recommendation. But again, to maybe satisfy council, could we be getting more of an update on this intersection, on the pilot, on this pilot project, 3 to 4 months from now, then 3 to 4 months, and then again at the final 12 at the end of the 2-year mark, coupled with current information from the OPP as to what is exactly going on. And to my point earlier with Dean about where do these intersections fall with the safety or what's happening at other intersections that are county intersections. Councillor Mayhew.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Warden. In terms of statistical analysis, I hope Council are taking into consideration the effects of COVID-19 on traffic, particularly on County Road 14. Many in my municipality are working from home. I drive County Road 14, Glendon Drive, regularly. And as a result of COVID-19, as a result of the stay-at-home orders, as a result of people working from their house, yes, the rumble strips have been very effective. Yes, there may have been, there are less accidents. But I think in terms of your statistical analysis, it has to be considered that COVID-19 has made a significant reduction in traffic on those roads, hence a reduction in accidents as well. Thank you, Madam Warden.
Okay. Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, and through the warden. I think it is, and Chris had touched base, just the importance of the data, just because we're all having issues at intersections across the county, but they're not cookie cutter issues. And every intersection is going to have a solution that is different from one to the next. When we look at this intersection, and we talked, and Chris had brought up, the problems that we're seeing are the stop and go, and we're seeing the trucks that are just blowing through the stop sign because they're taking the risk that they can see and they know there's a stop sign there and they're going. So is the LED lights or even a flashing light the reason? Because if they're stopping at the intersection, they know there's a stop sign. If they're blowing through because they just don't want to stop, then a flashing light isn't going to change that. And I think that's really important to look at the data that we're getting at those crashes. And I know the work that Chris and I have both been doing at Good Roads when we've been advocating for Vision Zero changes in the Highway Traffic Act, getting that OPP data, we've really been pushing for that. So sorry, my two kind of comments to Chris are, one, the trucks running the stop signs, and I know that was a main concern in the crash that happened last year, is getting those the names off the side of those trucks and the companies whose drivers are notorious for running that stop sign. Is that helpful in order to go to those companies? And I don't know, I'm not really a huge fan of blasting people in public, but does that help? And secondly, is there anything formally, I know you touched base that Alice and Kathy and I met with Jeff Urick last year about this, as well as the work at Good Roads, but is there anything formal that we as County Council can do to advocate not only for Vision Zero, but also for the OPP data?
Thanks. Through the warden to Councillor Elliott. So two things. I think I'll take the first one about identifying people, and it's not about like putting a finger on somebody and trying to shame them on social media or anything like that. We would like to know who these companies are. If somebody sees a commercial vehicle running any kind of traffic violation, letting us know. We certainly are happy to make a phone call. Sometimes it's letting the owners of those businesses know that there's a concern and them educating their drivers. We're fortunate in Middlesex County. I can't, I'll try to think of a name. I can't think of a name of a company where there's bad drivers. Like, it's not something that we see that's, you know, some kind of an endemic type of activity that happens, but it does happen. And we have had times when we've been able to reach out to those operators in the past, and they've been cooperative. And again, it's just talking to their workers, talking about safety and those types of things, and the importance to the community, and some of the results that could happen when they drive recklessly. And we've unfortunately have a good example here what happens when those type of activities occur. So looking into that is really important. And I agree, it's not about public shaming anybody. It's about giving us some opportunity to go and not necessarily OPP, county staff can talk to, because we're familiar with most of the people operating in our area. We can talk to them. As far as continuing to assist in lobbying activities, you've mentioned some really great ones. So again, support for AMO, Roma, OGRA, all those provincial organizations that do a lot of advocacy on our behalf, to let them know about those issues, the issues with the data, getting better access to data. We don't get collision reports anymore. We used to get them all. We get none. We do work with the OPP and with Stratford-Caradoc Police Department, and they're very good at helping us out. But again, they're busy and overloaded, and usually it's low on their priority list to get us collision data. I'm happy to do it ourselves, but there's a challenge. There's a wall there. It's a technological wall that we need some assistance with from the province. We love to support OPP and enforcement activities. Again, we'd love to support any kind of safety initiatives that come across, like Vision Zero. Again, continuing to support that and helping us guide what things we do. We do look to Vision Zero for some activity or some advice on some of these things. So again, it's these aren't specific to us, which is sort of why I can't say, well, this is the person you should call. I think these are things that are of a general benefit to municipalities across Ontario. So they're important issues. So that's a good question. Thank you.
Councillor Smith.
Thank you. Through the warden. 2 comments, if I could. So at the last meeting, and I also brought this forward to Chris last summer after AMO, I'll just say it again. And I know that Joanne did send this out to the chat as well, but cameras. Why, you know, I would love to look into the cost of having cameras in there, like at intersections. Ideally, if we can have them so they're portable, so then we, you know, put them at one location for a while, see what's going on, to then use that data. Because if we're not able to get the data on time, let's get our own data. Let's have it right there and collect it, figure out what to do. So that's one thing I was wondering if we could look into that and having a report brought back to see what those costs are, to see how that's going to work out. And then my other question, I guess it's more a question to either Councillor Vanderheyden or Councillor Richards, is I realize that this is a county road, so it would be probably OPP looking after it, but Glendon is also part of Stratford-Caradoc. So would there be a possibility, if we're, you know, are we able to direct some Stratford-Caradoc police over there to Glendon? Because I know that there's a speed issue along that road. Would that be a possibility as well? I don't know how that works with jurisdictions of Stratford-Caradoc Police to OPP, but thought I'd throw it out there as an option.
I think that's just an option out there. I don't know who would at this point, but say yes or no, but I think that that's good information to take back. Joanne's got that, and I'm sure Chris in his conversations could have that background information. Councillor DeVete. So you just have to unmute yourself, Ina.
Sorry. I pushed the video. Yeah, it was the video. Yeah, sorry about that.
No worries.
I didn't hear part of what you guys were saying about, I'm not sure, you were saying, I don't know about this. I think you were talking about cameras. Just stay tuned. AMO's coming out with a program. And so there's the speed things that are electronic and the camera pieces. So I'm not sure about the timing of that, but it's part of a technological solution to make sure that resources are used properly. Having a police officer sitting at a corner about which everyone knows within 10 minutes of his parking there, as far as traffic on the road typically, having areas that are constantly monitored 24/7. It's being used in Europe a lot, and you just automatically get a ticket in the mail for speeding and that kind of thing. So that future is coming, but I'm not sure about the timing as far as when it'll be available. But it's not far, is what I'm saying. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Councillor DeVete. Any other further questions or comments? So seeing none, there is just the recommendation to receive the report for information. If I can get a mover and a seconder for that, please. Councillor Brennan and Councillor Corneliuson. All opposed? And that's carried. Okay, continuing with Chris, and this is the report on the LED lights.
Thank you, Madam Warden. And as Councillor DeVete just mentioned, this is the future here, and there's lots of exciting things, technologies that are out there that we just would like to use, would just have challenges with due to regulation or legal issues. And this is one of them, unfortunately. So these LED embedded traffic signs, or LETs for their acronym, is what they use out in the industry. They've been around for a while. We have seen them mainly in the United States. They've been in operation. They use them for all sorts of different types of signage, but in Canada and really around this area in Huron County specifically, they've used them in stop signs and stop ahead signs. So there's a few challenges to this, to moving forward this type of signage in Ontario. It's not widespread. As far as I know in our region, again, it's only Huron County that's utilizing these right now. So when we talk about what rules we have to follow with regards to signs in Ontario, we really have to, with sort of different levels of things we use, right? So there's manuals and guidelines that we use that are sort of not prescriptive, but they allow us to have some flexibility of what we do, and they have recommendations about how to install signage. And then we have regulatory signs, and many regulatory signs are prescribed. They're prescriptive. They're defined under legislation. So Regulation 615 under the Highway Traffic Act clearly defines stop signs. So again, and as Officer Croker was saying earlier today, they're unclear about the ability for them to enforce or lay charges against a modified stop sign. So a modified stop sign is a sign that doesn't meet the criteria as prescribed in Regulation 615 as under the Highway Traffic Act legislation. So one challenge we have, as you've probably heard us talk about before, is in Ontario for insurance, we work under joint and several liability, and there would be some significant exposure for us under that process in Ontario if we were to install these signs and come under a lawsuit. And we have a recommendation from our insurer to say, listen, we appreciate you're trying to increase safety here, but there is a legal challenge here with using a modified stop sign at an intersection. So there's some challenges there. There is some recommended practice for use of LETs in Canada. There's a guideline there that we can use to look at. And so there has been some thought and process about the use of these signs in other jurisdictions across the country. But again, in multiple spots in that guideline, it does talk about how these can create distractions to drivers and potentially limit the effectiveness of other stop signs in the area. Again, and as I say, with any safety measure, like signs of this type is strictly managed through sound engineering and rational decision making. So we want to make sure we use sound data. We're making wise decisions about where these should be installed. It shouldn't be looked at in isolation, one intersection. We should be looking more generally across the county as a whole to see about where these types of safety measures would be most effective. So we don't have any signs, of course, these LED signs in Middlesex County. And again, the challenge is really about whether or not they're enforceable by the police and whether there is going to be some significant challenge to us with regards to liability without seeing these as part of an amendment to the Highway Traffic Act. So, ideally, we would like to see the Highway Traffic Act amended to include these signs. I did talk to one of my compatriots over at the City of London who actually sits on a committee to talk about updating the Ontario Traffic Manual to include these LEDs and embedded signs, and they backed off because they would need to have an amendment to the legislation to happen before they would be comfortable putting them into the Ontario Traffic Manual. So again, we would like to use these signs as an additional tool for us for road safety, but in the absence of a regulation that allows us to install the signs, and in the absence of a policy or framework that we would have to have in hand to talk about where we would install these signs in the county, at this point, my recommendation is it would be premature for us to utilize this technology until such time as the Highway Traffic Act is amended. So I'd be happy to answer any questions about these types of signs.
Okay, thank you for that, Chris. Okay, questions on these signs. I've got Councillor Roth and Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Warden. Chris, thanks for the report. I have a couple of questions on it, if I can. One is, have you actually heard from Huron County of the effectiveness or their report? I know you were going to get some information from them, and it'd still be nice to hear, even though I'd like to know how it is working for them. Excuse me. And the other one is, are you aware, has it been challenged in court at any time now or in the past? Like, has there been any court cases to know whether it holds up or not? That would be my two questions.
Through the warden to Councillor Ropp. So second question first is no, I'm not aware of a court challenge in Ontario regarding the LED signs. Again, it's because they're not really used. I don't think there's been a challenge at this point in time. Unfortunately, through my conversations with Huron County, who committed that this was a pilot project, they don't really have data. It's not there's not a report. There's no data forthcoming. As Dean mentioned earlier, he's going to speak to some of his neighbors to the north in Huron County to talk to them about what they're seeing with the effectiveness of those signs since they've been installed. But unfortunately, there's no formal process in Huron County for the installation of the signs or any reporting back on this program of any sort, as far as I have been told. So unfortunately, we don't have any kind of main response from engineering from Huron County, but again, working with the OPP, hoping we can get some data from them sort of before and after for how those LED signs have been working for Huron County.
Any follow-up, Councillor Ropp?
Yeah, just a comment. I do know that I do know of one accident. I think Councillor Canellison can add to that as well, that where a truck went through the those lit up signs, and it still is driver error. But I just wondered overall, I thought maybe Huron County would be tracking it pretty close since it's a pilot project. Just a comment.
Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, and through the warden. So we're seeing other jurisdictions outside the province use these lights. They're manufacturing these lights. So I'm just wondering if, and you did mention in your report about sending a letter to both MPPs, Urick and McNaughton, but I'm wondering if we should formalize that recommendation and have a letter sent out, and not only to our Middlesex County MPPs, but also to the Ministry of Transportation, and possibly even, I know we're meeting next week for Good Roads to advocate on our behalf if this is something that we're looking to implement, and we're getting positive feedback from the OPP that they think it would be a good thing, that we should make that push for that to happen in the Highway Traffic Act.
Yeah, through the warden, I'm not sure if Bill or Kathy want to say anything. I think we're already taking some steps in that direction with our local MPPs. But I'll just quickly say to Councillor Elliott that MEA and I will be supporting that as an advocacy position for OJRA for this fall. It's time. We have data from south of the border about how these work. They're across all of the United States, as far as I understand. So I think it's time that we look at that and remove some of those restrictions from the Highway Traffic Act.
Just to follow up on that, Bill has reached out to our two MPP offices to meet with both Jeff and Monty on a couple of issues, and this one in particular. That was, I think, the number one on the requested, the email request. So I know that they're working on just scheduling. So hopefully we'll get something together and we can report back on that. Okay. Councillor Cornelison, I saw your hand up.
Yes, thank you, Warden. Yeah, just further to Councillor Ropp's comment about the collision there. There was a very serious collision on 83 Highway and Airport line, where these lights have been in place for about 2 years, perhaps longer. And it was a large truck, a semi-tractor trailer that rolled through the stop sign, again, driver error, right in front of the path of an oncoming car, which very nearly resulted in a fatality. The person is still not fully recovered. And again, I think this just really highlights that regardless of what interventions you apply at an intersection, it comes down to driver awareness and driver compliance. Actually, I think it's more compliance of driving, because clearly a professional driver would know that a stop sign is a stop sign and must stop. And he obviously, in this case, he chose not to do so. So I think it's a very complex question that we're dealing with here. And I think it'll be a very challenging solution to discover.
Thank you for those comments. Any other questions or comments on Chris's report? Councillor Smith.
If we could, through the warden, just a simple question. Chris, could you email out to County Council where those LED lights are over in Huron? So just in case we're out traveling and leaving our house, now that there's no stay-at-home order, we can take a drive to see what the blinking stoplight looks like, stop sign looks like. That'd be great.
Yeah, I'll send that around. The one that Councillor Corneliuson mentioned is Highway 83 and Airport line, which is the one that's been there the longest. I know there might be a couple of others, but I'll get an updated list from their county engineer, and I will send that around to County Council.
I think that one would be the closest one to us.
Yes, I believe.
Most definitely. So when you are having to, drive around, keep a baby quiet, that you might want to take a road trip up there. Any other questions or comments? Okay, so seeing none, if I can get you've got a recommendation in front of you at this time. Mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Brennan and Councillor Warwick. Councillor Mayhew, I keep seeing you tap your screen. Did you have any comment on this, or just?
No, I didn't, Madam Warden. You assumed wrong, but yes, I'm on a small screen, but everything's fine. Thank you.
All right, just wanted to check. Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All opposed? And that's carried. Thank you very much. Okay, I know that Bill has to jump off the call for another obligation. I didn't know, Bill, you don't have anything to comment or report on at this time?
No.
Okay, thanks. Just wanted to give you that opportunity. Moving on to correspondence and information items. General payables, May 1st to 31st, 2021, totaling $1,108,985.22. Planning payables, May 1st to 31st, 2021, totaling $4,343.63. Electronic payments for May 2021, totaling $2,605,635.11. And I might just get Cindy to speak to this because I know that there is an error in the reporting.
Great, thanks through the warden. I just want to point out a change that's required to the report. If you look at the amount that's beside the visa for Morgan Calvert, it should actually be a credit instead of a debit. I'd also like to note that the Visa card has been canceled. So last month you wouldn't have seen any amount there, and then all of a sudden we just had a credit appear. So the total for the payables also has to be revised. So the new amount should be $2,597,489.51. Thanks, and happy to answer any questions, and sorry about that.
Can you just repeat that amount again? Sorry, Cindy.
Absolutely. $2,597,489.51.
Okay, thanks. Any questions on that? Okay. And Kathy, you can update that to the proper amount. I'll just look for a nod of the head. Social service payables, May 1st to 31st, 2021, totaling $328,491.96. Strathmere Lodge payables, May 1st to 31st, 2021, totaling $189,006.24. Road payables, May 1st to 31st, 2021, totaling $664,150.24. MLPS payables, May 1st to 31st, 2021, totaling $740,887.88. Information technology payables, May 1st to 31st, 2021, totaling $115,755.04. Economic development payables totaling $3,967.48. Okay, can I get a mover and a seconder to receive those items for information? Councillor Richards and Councillor Elliott. All opposed? That's carried. Strathmere Lodge Family Newsletter, June 2021. Blacks Bridge PIC display materials. Final approval of plan of condominium for Kilworth Heights West Limited with Tridon Group Limited. The file number's there, it's in Middlesex Center. Final approval of plan of condominium for 1960634 Ontario Inc., Sifton Properties in Middlesex Center. North Middlesex Community Improvement Plan. Councillor Ropp.
Yeah, just want to make a comment to that. And I want to thank staff, in particular Mike Bernier, for his efforts in putting that together. That's the first time we've had a community improvement plan, and I want to thank the county for their part of it as well. Kara for helping to get that done, but just comments to that.
Great. Thank you very much, Brian. Provincial news release, safe reopening. AMO update for May 20th, 2021. AMO update June 1st, 2021. City of London resolution. Middlesex Library Board minutes for May 25th, 2021. Can I get a mover and a seconder to receive those items for information, please? Councillor Warwick and a seconder. Councillor Ropp. All opposed? That's carried. Any inquiries? New business, our next county council meeting will be June 22nd. Looks like it's a full agenda already, so that we can send Kathy off to a happy retirement. And then, of course, the Warden's Golf Tournament in September with further details to come. And with that, I will ask for a motion to adjourn at 9 minutes after 3. Mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Vanderhayden, a seconder. Everyone wants to keep going. Councillor Brennan. All opposed? And that's carried. Thank you very much, and we'll see you in a couple weeks.